Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Grace Paul Adebayo, and I will not be doing this alone. I've got...
And I'm Oyin Priye Krumale. Hello, Grace.
Hello, Krumale. Today's topic is interesting. I find it interesting. It is redesigning the Naira note and how it will affect us, you and I, Nigerians, how it will affect us. You know, on the 26th of October, the CBN governor, Emefiele, in a press conference, told Nigerians the plans to redesign the Naira and selected Naira. We have the 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira notes. Yeah. And the reason he gave, like, is tagged as illicit financial flow. That's just what it described it to be, but it has got something more, there's more to it. That there are like 5 reasons, which we'll be looking at later on, later on in the program. Now, people have asked the question, is it the right time to do so? Well, when we start the conversation, you'll get to know, or when we start to talk about the reasons, you will get to know. And remember, I don't know if you've seen this on social media. The 5,000 Naira notes.
That was pure fake news, and immediately I saw it on the social media that some persons came on social media and said that the Central Bank of Nigeria is going to issue 5,000 Naira notes to the public. In fact, what hit me at first was how bad the Nigerian economy would have been if that story was true in its first place. But I'm glad it wasn't, because the CBN governor came while they was having the press conference on the plans of the CBN regarding the redesign of the Nigerian Naira, the denominations of 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira, and the reasons why they were going to do that. So if you were part of those who feasted on that fake news about Nigeria having 5,000 Naira note, that's a lie. It's
a no, it's not true. Like, it is not true. I know it does not exist. It should. I don't know why people are maybe okay. So there's a misconception about this. When people call it a change of currency, I rather stick with redesigning of the banknotes, because I feel the change. If you say change of the currency, that's ambiguous.
Yes, and so, it could be referring to some other things that the CBN is not even including in their recent action with regards to what they intend to do with the Nigerian Naira. But I think it would be proper if we hear from the horse's mouth in person of Godwin Emefiele about what the CBN is about to do currently with regards to redesigning the Nigerian Naira, the 200, the 500 and the 1,000 Naira notes, and the reason behind that.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen and members of the press, and welcome to this special press briefing at the Central Bank of Nigeria this afternoon. We have called this gathering to inform all our stakeholders and the general public of persisting concerns we currently face regarding the management of our existing series of banknotes and currency in circulation, particularly those outside the banking system in Nigeria. As you all may be aware, currency management is a key function of the Central Bank of Nigeria as enshrined in Section 2B of the CBN Act 2007. Indeed, the integrity of a local legal tender, the efficiency of its supply, as well as its efficacy in the conduct of monetary policy are some of the hallmarks of a great central bank. In recent times, however, currency management has faced several daunting challenges that have continued to escalate in scale and sophistication, with attendant and unintended consequences for the integrity of both the CBN and the country at large. These challenges primarily include: 1, significant hoarding of banknotes by members of the public, with statistics showing that over 85% of currency in circulation are outside the vaults of our commercial banks. To be more specific, as at the end of September 2022, available data at the CBN indicate that 2.73 trillion naira out of the 3.23 trillion naira currency in circulation was outside the vaults of commercial banks across the country and supposedly held by members of the public. Evidently, currency in circulation has more than doubled since 2015, rising from 1.46 trillion in December 2015 to 3.23 trillion as of September 2022. I must say that this is a very worrisome trend that cannot continue to be allowed. 2, worsening shortage of clean and fit banknotes with attendant negative perception of the CBN and increased risk to financial stability. 3, increasing ease and risk of counterfeiting, evidenced by several security reports. Indeed, recent developments in photographic technology and advancements in printing devices have made counterfeiting relatively easier. In recent years, the CBN has recorded significantly higher rates of counterfeiting, especially at the higher denominations of 500 and 1,000 naira notes, banknotes. Although global best practice is for central banks to redesign, produce, and circulate new local legal tender every 5 to 8 years, our existing series of banknotes, the Naira, has not been redesigned in the last 20 years. The bank remains resolutely determined to achieve the objective of its mandate as enshrined in Section 2B of the CBN Act of 2007 to ensure a strong and effective legal tender. It is therefore no longer tenable to continue with business as usual, especially given the continually evolving circumstances that could impeach the optimal performance of our Naira. Furthermore, we believe that the redesign of the currency will help deepen our drive to entrench cashless economy, as it will be complemented by increased minting of our e-Naira. This will further rein in the currency outside the banking system into the banking system, thereby making monetary policy more efficacious. Also, in view of the prevailing level of security situation in the country, the CBN is convinced that the incidence of terrorism and kidnapping will be minimized as access to large volume of money outside the banking system used as source of funds for ransom payments will begin to dry up. Ladies and gentlemen, on the basis of these problems and facts set out above, and in line with the provisions of Sections 2B, Section 18A, and Section 19, subsection A and B of the CBN Act 2007, the management of the CBN has sought and obtained the approval of President Muhammadu Buhari to redesign, produce, release, and circulate new series of banknotes at 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1,000 naira levels. In line with this approval, we have finalized arrangements for the new currency to begin circulation from December 15th, 2022, after its launch by President Muhammadu Buhari. The new and existing currencies shall remain legal tender and circulate together until January 31, 2023, when the existing currencies shall cease to be legal tender. Accordingly, all deposit money banks currently holding the existing denominations of the currency may begin returning these banknotes back to the CBN effective immediately. The newly designed currency will be released to the banks in the order of first come, first served basis. Customers of banks are enjoined to begin paying into their bank accounts the existing currency to enable them withdraw the new banknotes once circulation begins in mid-December 2022. All banks are therefore expected to keep open their currency processing centers from Monday to Saturday so as to accommodate all cash that will be returned by their customers to their vaults. For the purpose of this transition from existing to new notes, bank charges for cash deposits are hereby suspended with immediate effect. Therefore, deposit money banks are to note that no bank customer shall bear any charges for cash returned or paid into their bank accounts. Members of the public are to please note further that the present notes remain legal tender and should not be rejected as a means of exchange for purchase of goods and services. We would like to use this opportunity to reassure the general public that the CBN would continue to monitor both the financial system in particular and the economy in general, and always act in good faith for the achievement of the bank's objectives and the betterment of our country in general. I thank you for listening.
Members of the High Table. Just a quick question, Governor, you did mention that bank charges for deposits are to be suspended. My question to you is, you do know that I think 150,000 Naira now is the highest someone can pay over the counter. Is the central bank also increasing that level so that you mentioned that Nigerians can go pay in their old notes? So are you increasing that limit? The second question also is there, do you think that this would impact on the Naira in terms of, the Naira has been depreciating, do you think it will make the Naira appreciate? Is that why you took that decision?
Very much.
Thank you.
Just to follow up to what Nancy said, my name is Sunday Michael Ogu and I write for Daily Trust newspaper. Mr. Governor, given the sudden announcement, what timeline are you looking at until we are able to mop up this old cash? And if I may ask, how much will this cost the country to replace this new cash? Thank you very much.
Mr. Governor, my name is Ima Uja Bangat. I want to ask, what would be the implication of this announcement for your efforts to rein in inflation? Thank you.
My name is Leah Katumba Batunde from Nigerian Television Authority, and I'm wondering, for the bulk of the people in rural areas who engage in a lot of informal transactions, what will be the mechanism to get them to comply within this short time frame? Thank you.
And whether the limit, the maximum limit of 150,000, what we have right now is that if you pay 150,000 into your account, you do not incur charges. But if you pay more than 150,000, you pay the charges. So which means it does not limit you from paying in whether it's 10 million or 1 billion into your account. The only thing is that it says you will pay for cash processing for depositing above 150,000. So what we've done by this is to say, even if you want to pay 1 billion, 10 billion into your account, that you are not going to be charged any money. Will this decision impact the value of the Naira? Well, I do not want to just easily admit that would happen, but we suspect that this would happen and that it will positively impact the value of the Naira, because we don't want to dwell in speculation, we want to dwell in reality. But the point is this, I'm going to the issue of the person who talked about whether it will rein in inflation. The issue is that, like you have heard, as of September 2022, we had 3.23 trillion Naira in circulation. Out of that, 2.73 trillion Naira is outside the vaults of the banks. So first of all, what we want to do is mop all this 3.23 trillion Naira back into the CBN so we can take control of money supply again and begin to see how this will help rein in inflation. No doubt we believe it has positive impact on inflation. Timeline for mopping up, I would say today is 26th. So we have about 7 days to the end, 6 or 7 days to the end of October, till January 31, 2023. That is almost about 100 days. I think that is adequate to mop up the currency out of currency from circulation back to the vaults of the CBN. The last question talked about the bulk of the people in the rural areas. You are correct that it will impact them, particularly those who do not have bank accounts. And that is the reason, like I said yesterday at the session we held at the first year anniversary of our e-Naira, we will be introducing a number of tokens, and where people in our rural areas, even if you don't have a bank account, you should be able to conduct banking services without necessarily having bank account. However, if you are carrying cash, you can go to the nearest bank branch near you. They will take your cash and open an account for you for the purpose of collecting Naira back. For the purpose of returning the old Naira, right, into the bank's vaults, and then collecting the new Naira when we begin to release them. But we will continue to fine-tune this program to see to it that the interest of all Nigerians, we don't make life more difficult for Nigerians. But you all must agree that this trend of lots of money out of circulation, out of the bank vaults, is unacceptable. You can imagine doubling of the size of Naira in circulation from 1.46 trillion in 2015, in fact more than double, to 3.23 trillion in September 2022. It's unacceptable, and it takes the control of money supply out of the hands of the central bank. We want to have firm grip of money supply in Nigeria. I thank you very much for your attention.
And when we look at what the current CBN administration is considering about redesigning the Naira, we will talk about all the implications and how it affects you, how it affects myself, how it affects the economy of Nigeria. So let's quickly go on a break. When we return, the discussion continues. Do stay with us. Many thanks for joining us on the program. We are still talking about the federal government, or should I say the Central Bank of Nigeria's plans to redesign the nation's topmost three denominations: 200 Naira, 500 Naira, and 1,000 Naira. Myself and Grace were still on it.
Yes, so before we go to the reasons why the CBN wants to redesign the banknote,
yes,
I think it's important that we talk about the Bank of England. I know they, when the Queen died, there was a need, many things, they had to revamp many national symbols. And one of it is their anthem, as a place where they have the coin, they have to put King Charles III, and then for their notes, their currency, they have to, the portrait of the king has to be in
removed. The part of the queen will have to be
removed and replaced with the king. Now, this is from the Bank of England. It said that the king's portraits will make their way onto banknotes by the end of 2022 and will be featured on the front of all polymer notes, which are including the £5, £10, £20, and £50. They will enter circulation by mid-2024.
Mid-2024.
And Nigeria's like Apex Bank, CBN, wants to phase out, wants everyone Nigerians to turn in or remit their old notes, that is the 200 rather, 500, 1,000 by January rather, 31st, 2023. How feasible is this?
Well, I think we should look at this, the reasons why the CBN chief gave. He mentioned some of them had to do the reasons. We'll talk about kidnapping, which he said the bandits are taking advantage of this. So we're going to look at that. We'll look at where you say 80 or more than 85% of the currency in circulation are outside the vaults of commercial banks, and the shortage of clean and fit banknotes and increased in the case of counterfeiting. So if we look at the time duration, I believe maybe part of the plan of the federal government is to make sure that politicians in 2023, will have plans to buy votes at the polling units, at the wherever we have the polling units in the country. You have their agents who are, selling, who has the candidates, those who are coming to cast their votes. So, like, let's have your
what former governor of Ekiti State said. Stomach infrastructure
would be. It might be. It's going to be part of what will be the electoral malpractice. So probably the government is trying to curtail that. So even if they're trying to curtail that,
I'm of the opinion that the business of the CBN is not in the CBN Act for the CBN governor to checkmate electioneering.
No, I don't think the CBN governor is actually checkmating electioneering. The CBN is responsible for regulating the flow of Naira within the economy. They have the constitutional power to review the Naira to make sure that they put security checks in place for unscrupulous elements to counterfeit the Naira and to misuse the Naira. Do remember that in 1968, when we were having this discussion, one of the reasons that necessitated the change or the redesign of the Naira is because it has been misused and abused by virtue of the Civil War. So the CBN, through its powers from the CBN Act, had to challenge that by making sure that they redesigned the Naira. So I believe their powers for looking at that part from the electoral perspective is just to make sure that the Naira was not misused or abused in the time of election. So irrespective of the time that the Naira is misused or abused, is the responsibility of the CBN to make sure they check that.
So I feel this is, I'm trying to put proper perspective to this now.
Okay.
So let's assume politicians, if they have huge amount of money with them and they remit it because there is 31st of January, they must have remitted all their old currencies, because if politicians want to buy vote, what we see is that they use higher denominations.
Yes, the 1,000 Naira, the 500 Naira.
Yeah, so if they deposit it into the banks,
yes,
and the new notes come.
The new notes will start. It will come into circulation
because by 15th or by 15th of December, they will have introduced the new notes.
But it won't be in circulation.
But I feel politicians, they always have their way.
Okay.
I don't. It's just normal. Like, this is Nigeria. They always have their way. Another thing to know is that if not even politicians, there's some people that have got loads of money with them.
Yes.
I know that there is a bank policy that when you remit an amount of money that is really huge. I know this is they call it SAR, that is Suspicious Activity Reports.
Okay.
That the bank is meant to alert maybe ICPC,
and
EFCC,
okay,
so that this is this, because so that it will not look like the banks are promoting illegal or
money laundering.
Money laundering, so things like that. So it's left to the bank. The bank, they have their way of also doing or alerting the Crimes and Financial Commission, EFCC, as well as ICPC.
But the thing is, I meant to understand that the EFCC officers and the ICPC officers, due to law, they are stationed in banks as well. They work with the banks closely. And they work closely to monitor transactions that comes in and out of some bank accounts. That if there is a deposit of $10,000, $50,000, $150,000, there'll be an eagle eye. Okay, where this money is coming from? Diaspora is coming into Nigeria. To who's the name of the bank? Who owns the account? Is it the business person? They look at the business transactions and antecedents of that particular account. They look at the person. They categorize and profile the person or the particular institution or the organization that's into that activity. So they have their way of trying to merge data together to know that if this is coming through illicit means.
I recall a story. Recall a story you said some time ago about a colleague or a student of yours, like
exactly.
A classmate of yours that had a huge sum of money that the bank had to.
And that's just 2.5 million naira. So
imagine a student having a student account.
Because it's a student and it's a student account, like, okay, what's 2.5 million naira doing in your student account? So they had to block the account. So he had to go to the DSA, the division of, the dean, division of student affairs, to explain that this is a business. I just had to use my student account to facilitate the business. And they saw that, okay, the money is coming into your account on a daily basis. At the same time, they checked at the outflow of that particular money coming into a student's account. They saw that it was using it to pay student school fees, to carry out registration activities. So his explanation of what he was doing with the money actually correlated with the transaction that they saw on their system. And they felt, oh, okay, we understood. And they opened back the account. So I think if it's about fighting corruption, fighting inflow of money, I think the governing authorities, the EFCCs, the ICPCs can do it with the commercial banks cooperating with the CBN. But like Bolan Oloje, they said in one of those articles in print newspaper, he said it's a smart move by the government to do that if it's going to tame vote buying in 2023.
But is this the right time?
Before going to the time, no matter how smart this move is the government doing this from a clean heart? Because the government knows how to have their way with the banks. So even some time ago, you could remember there are 2 bank chief executives that were embroiled in money laundering. So those banks have actually gone out of
intercontinental banks. They're not in existence. So I will mention them.
Yes, they are not in,
and all that.
So their chief executives was being questioned by the Economics and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC), by ICPC, with regards to some of those questionable and suspicious transactions that was carried out on that particular space. How did they come about it? Now, these are even banks and CEOs of banks that the eyes of the law is right on them. So what about this? What about these political parties who have, okay, fine, the current CBN governor, you wanted to allude to that he expressed intention to contest for elections, or no, to contest for the party primaries while they were jostling for the ticket. And when the nation roared that no, he doesn't have the capacity, he cannot do that. If he's going to do that, he will need to resign his position as a CBN governor.
Then he alleged that it was the Association of Rice Farmers that got the form.
Well, he would have declined. The nation was in uproar when that particular station came into. So now, how do we know that some of these political parties, how many of them do we have currently? More than 64 that are about contesting for political offices. How do we know that they are not liaising with any of the bank chiefs to make sure that, okay, even if within this space of time we are meant to pay back the old currency, when the new currency comes into place, we will want to withdraw. Well, there's another version that says the government will need to print a limited amount of the new currency. How is the government going to manage this? Is it really going to reflect in a transparent electioneering process where vote buying will, if not completely become a thing of the past, will be minimized to the barest minimum?
That's a question, a big question. Another thing is that the CBN governor said, he said it's going to help the cashless economy because there is too much money in circulation.
How much? He was talking about more than 2.7 trillion naira in circulation.
At this age and time of technology, I do not believe there is too much money that people want to use cash. I believe people, because we have smartphones, technology has come to play.
If you look at that,
I want to make a transaction. I don't need to go to the bank. I need to make I just pay with my mobile device.
Where do you do that? You do that in places like Lagos, some places like in Kano State, in Rivers State, and
Abuja.
Probably in Abuja, and even these places that we mentioned, they are not completely a cashless policy-driven areas. They are bailing the carts, though.
Let's not forget, how about the POS ventures.
The POS ventures.
Point of
There was a
sales.
calculation. There was a calculation.
So I have it here. I have it here. So this is according to the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System (NIBSS). It says the total money in supply in Nigeria's economy stands as 45 trillion naira, of which 7%, which is 3.2 trillion naira, is cash
in circulation.
Yes. So it's just 3.2% that is in cash. Most people, what we do is we want to have easy way of doing this. I don't have to go to the banking or so. If it goes further to say that Nigerians are really shunning cash for electronic settlement. That is, the value of instant payments, electronic transaction was 32 point. Did you hear that? That the value of instant payments, electronic transaction, which is POS,
yes,
was 32.84 trillion naira in September 2022 alone.
Okay, but even if you look at that, there are they only take place in places like Fine, in Lagos, and a few rural areas. There are places even in Lagos, you cannot do transaction. You need to pay with cash. You need to pay. Apart from the government bus transit in operation in Lagos, where you subscribe your card and you swipe your card before you enter the transport system. Most transport system, of course, and the government-controlled transport system in Lagos is not even up to 50%. Lagos is more than 20 million people.
But if you notice,
if you notice, not just in Lagos.
So at every, how many meters walk now? At every, maybe say 10, 20 steps, you will see someone with a POS business. Have you noticed?
If you consider the population, it still doesn't cut it. It's not enough. So I would not completely side that Nigeria is really bailing the cat or is doing as much or as expected when we talk about cashless policy. No.
Okay, but you are not taking sides that is the right time.
Well, for me, saying is the right time, I want to be in the middle. Why did I say that? In the middle, in the sense that if there was going to be a policy-driven instrument to make sure that we are trying to cut down on vote buying, to make sure that we are trying to bring out the money, the large amount of cash in the hands of a few people in the economy, those who involved in unscrupulous elements like kidnapping and banditry, who got paid with ransom and they're keeping the cash back there in the forest or wherever they kept it, and they are spending it. If this was the time they want to do that, they should have started 6 months back, if not the beginning of 2022. They should have started with that policy. Now we will not be talking about giving Nigerians 2 months, that in January 2023 that you're going to stop using the old money, the 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes. It's just too quick. If you look at our population, we're talking about 200 million plus people. Even if some people do not have cash and they are not transacting with cash in their hand, that's a very, very insignificant number of people in the 200 million people we are talking about. What about those other people who live in rural areas where there are no banks, who don't even have bank accounts, and who have lots of money in their possession? How are they going to exchange this money or go to the banks to pay in this money?
I can remember vividly. I know it was in 2014. I don't know if that's changed. The local government, it was in Enugu State, local government there, is called it Uzowani, as the last local government.
That's why you did your NYSC?
Yes.
Okay.
It was in the village, Uzowani local government area. And there was a village there they call it Adan. For you to transact, for you to get to the bank, it will take you about 2 hours to get to the bank. The bank then, as at then 2014, was in Nsukka local government, where you have UNN.
Yes.
So you have to travel, and the roads are they're deplorable. They're in deplorable states. Before imagine how you want the local people, those in the rural area, to get to the banking and I know that before you even get a bus, there's what they call it, Entraku bus. Yeah, I can't forget. Entraku bus. Before you get that bus, you take a while for the bus to be filled.
So how many minutes does it take you from the rural area to Nsukka to make a transaction?
About 2 hours.
Okay, 2 hours. How many people do we have residing in that local area?
I really don't know, but there are many villages in that area. Another thing to say is that they are into rice, they are rice farmers. Okay. So they have people who can come from the city to buy rice from them. So they have this money.
They don't transact with the transfers? You have to pay cash?
As such, then it was not really a big thing, POS then. I was not, no, I had to go to the bank to withdraw.
Okay.
I had to, like, when I need money, yes. I withdraw the money I need, I keep it
that
in
you
my...
can spend for 2 weeks.
Yes.
And that would be a lot.
Yes,
okay.
That's what I do. That's what I do. So I can imagine, and if they have to do that, I'm watching the flux of the numbers of people that will be in the banking hall.
Okay.
Remember the BVN, when we have to register for our BVNs, how people flooded the banking halls. Yes. I'm wondering how they expect a nursing mother, a pregnant woman to get there. There's some things that I don't see it. They're not feasible at this time.
So now, if that's not even just the BVN, Sega, when it has to do with the NIN, when Nigerians were to go register, to go to the NIN outlets and the centers, we interviewed lots of people there, and one of the allegations leveled against the government is their timing. So when we talk about policies and the timing, like when we had conversations with Nigerians, when the government actually made it mandatory for all Nigerians to have their NINs, and that was when COVID-19 was at its peak, and the government had equally set guidelines for gatherings of people, and the governing authorities within the same administration gave a mandatory deadline for people to get their NIN. So when they went to the NIN outposts, there were lots of people there. They didn't observed COVID-19 protocols, and they made complaints about how the government was insensitive and it's not considering their health. So I think this may not be the perfect time, but I equally want to exercise some level of understanding with the government in its bid to try to fight electoral malpractices by way of vote buying. So probably that's why maybe it kept it in the offing until he's bringing it out at the 11th hour.
So another thing I feel it is not the right time is because of the amount of money, the costs of doing this. Already, we're in the deficit budget of 10 trillion naira.
Yes.
And then there will
2023.
be 2023. Okay, so I know that the Debt Management Office, DMO, Mrs. Patience Onihaya, it says Nigeria's, in a press release, says the Nigeria's total public debt stock, representing domestic and external debt stocks of the federal government, 36 states government, the FCT was 42.84 trillion naira as at the 30th of June 2022. That's a total debt
calculation, debt stock, 42 trillion naira.
Yes, 42 trillion naira, 42.84 trillion naira. And then there will be census.
Yes, in 2023.
And I'm like, how are we going to finance all of this? All of this?
Well, that's one of the reasons why some persons said it's not the right time. But, you know, the government, some critics or some persons who will side with the government will feel like the government has in its possession the accurate data and what they feel is the right time for some of these policies to be taken. But the thing is, have they considered the people? How it will affect the people, the economy of the people? When we just talked about people besieging the banks in the bid of trying to pay in, even if you talk about the POS machines. So you take your cash to the POS, you want to pay in. The POS persons, after collecting lots of cash from people, security will need to be in place. Now taking that money back to the bank to go and transact, it's also another point of issues that needs to be dealt with. You talked about, you made some level of comparisons within the United Kingdom that will remove those of the pictures and the portraits, the signature of the Queen, and will have to replace it with the King, and they were extending that to 2024. And how many people do we have in the United Kingdom? It's far less. I believe we just run into 60, 70 million people there. We're talking about people in Nigeria, more than 150, 200 million people.
We don't even have accurate data of our population. Anyway, another thing that he said, one of the reasons he said that the norm is to redesign the Naira, the currency, 5 to 8 years. And now it's been up to, it was in the last 20 years.
20 years that we
was redesigned. Is that reason tenable?
Well, it might have a reason. You know, when the government looks at when you try to sell an idea or sell a policy by way of policy implementation and to field the responses of the populace, there are reasons that it will sell to the public. And if you look at all the reasons that the CBN governor gave, you know that these are tenable reasons. But if we have not done this, if we are supposed to do this between 8 and 5 years, and we've not done it for 20 years, of course, that's a very, very cogent, that's a very, very tenable, good reason why we should do that. If we are supposed to have census in every 10 years and we've not had that for 17 years, 2023, we're going to have that. I think that's a good reason why we should have that, irrespective of the financial implication in the economy and in the government. But what will you say?
I need to mention that what will I call it now? I need to mention that it is also important to note that mutilated currency, mutilated note is another reason that the CBN governor alluded to changing or redesigning the banknote. There's a way. We use polymer for 20 naira, which is not even part of the currency of the
5 naira, 10 naira, 20 naira, 50 naira.
That's not even part of the currencies that will be redesigned. But I know that we don't really have mutilated 500 naira, 200 naira, 1,000 naira. Have you noticed?
Very, very few of them in circulation. But I've seen brown 1,000 nairas. Most of them are brownie. It looks like they've gone through lots of changes from hand to hand and hand to hand. Even when you go to the ATMs, you don't have perfect, clean, crisp 1,000 naira notes anymore. Even the 500 naira notes, a few of the 200 naira and the 100 naira, because I feel they went through some level of reprinting when there was a particular time that we have completely mutilated notes. But however, there's need for us to have new ones in circulation. So, but the thing is, if the government is going to consider expanding or elongating the duration for which the people can bring back their cash into the vaults of commercial banks, it will hinder the plan of the government.
The purpose of the vote buying, the checkmating, electioneering.
Yes, but the thing is, will that stop them from selling votes in 2023, even if we have the new cash in circulation?
When stomach infrastructure has come to stay,
maybe it will be another kind of dispensation where we see people selling their votes by way of using the transfer method. And it's incumbent on the government to stop this, because there are instances where election is going on, people are going to cast their votes and security officers are on ground, and you can see at other side where some persons are calling some persons to come transact. Go and cast your vote, take a picture of who the party you voted, come back to me. When I see that, I'm going to pay you cash for it if you voted for my political party. So if the security officers are going to be stationed in those places, fine, Nigerians don't want them armed because they feel it's threatening. But some security agencies will be armed, but they will be far away from where the votes is being cast. But those who are not armed, yes, so they should stop that.
So I recall speaking with CSP Ulumuyiwa, it's the National PRO of the Nigerian Police Force. So he said that they are retraining their men for them to be able to, what's the word now? Arrest or know when someone is buying votes or selling votes or buying votes. Because I remember asking him questions about the gubernatorial elections that happened in Osun State and the other Ekiti State, telling them, there are people, we have it on social media, that people sold their votes, and they're like, no, nothing of such happened. I'm like, but we saw it on social media.
Well, I believe it's within the confines of the police force to make sure they take care of that, but it will never be 100%. But the thing is, even if they can achieve 80%, they would have done a lot for Nigerians. Even if they can achieve 50%, they would have done a lot for Nigerians. But the thing is, we shouldn't completely put this on, if we're talking about vote buying and vote selling, we shouldn't put it as the responsibility of the government completely. Of course, it's the responsibility of the government. The CBN is just playing its role. The people will sell their votes themselves.
I was going to mention that the President Muhammadu Buhari has given the marching order for them to redesign the bank note. So I don't know if it looks like he wants to be, he wants his administration to be remembered. What do you have to say?
Well, people, because when this administration have people who are for and against it, and sometimes when they criticize the administration, they don't put into consideration, they never see the good side of the government or perceive. They always look at standing in or coming in from the critical point of view, that if he wants to remember, he wants himself to be remembered in the sign of time in Nigerian history, that it went down as well, that it was one of those that championed the redesigning of the Naira, just like it happened in 1999 to 2005 and 2007. I don't think that criticism will hold water. Because if you look at the reasons, they are tenable.
Another thing is that if you notice this year alone, in 2022, the things he has done, for instance, the honorary award he gave to some people, do you notice? The
honorary awards have no economic...
I know, for them to be remembered, oh, the president did this to me,
well,
he gave
has
me
to
this.
do that. Well, it's both political and otherwise.
Okay, that's how much we can take on this episode of the program. I hope you learned one or two. I'm Grace Paul Adebayo.
And I'm Oimpriye Kromale. Many thanks for watching. You can send eyewitness report to info@highImpactstudios.com. See you.